Hey everybody, welcome back. This is Tom with Charlees Props, and I'm here pushing my third infinity spinner. And I'm going to talk a little bit about the ease of pushing this prop, and a couple things to watch out for with pushing this prop. Pushing 1,450 pixels might seem a bit scary, especially when we don't print the wiring diagram on these props, but I'm here to tell you that pushing this prop is shockingly easy. Again, there's a couple gotchas, so let's get to it. All right, everybody, this is Tom with Charlees Props, and we're going to talk about the Infinity Spinner today, and I'm going to start as if you don't have it at all. So we're going to go to Create New Download, make sure you have an internet connection, drag it over where you want the prop to sit, as you would anything else. If you scroll to the bottom of our props, go down to Spinner and expand it, find the Infinity Spinner, and then insert the model. Now, if you're not used to pushing props that don't have a wiring diagram printed on the back of them, a couple things to note is when you bring the prop in, you can move it around as necessary, but notice that in this prop, whether it's selected or not, if you select it, all the pixels turn yellow. If you deselect, all the pixels turn white, with the exception of one pixel. Notice this one pixel right here is actually turning a light blue. That actually tells us that that's pixel number 1. That just helps with uh, figuring out what the orientation is. So if you decide that you want this prop or any other prop to sit at a different angle, you can actually grab this and rotate it if you find that it's not sitting in the correct position based on how you installed it in your show. But anyway, so to get to the wiring diagram within Xlights, click on it, make sure it's yellow, and then right click with your mouse and then select wiring view. Now it's going to pop up this tiny screen that is nearly impossible to see, and none of it makes sense. I don't like to expand it. I'll show you why here in just a second, because if you hit maximize to expand here, notice that the prop gets out of, it's a little skewed. It's not in the correct view of what you look at. Now you can still zoom in and zoom out as you would and using the scroll wheel on my mouse. But the problem is if you're looking at the prop in front of you and you're trying to figure out specifically does the next hole go up or down or left or right, something to that effect, it might look a little bit skewed. So what I try to do instead is I try to maximize the size of this window while still keeping this prop looking like it's about as round as it gets. So that's about as far as I can get here, where it still looks pretty round to me. And again, like I said, using your mouse, you can scroll in and you can scroll out using your mouse to zoom in and out. And a mac's going to be opposites most likely by default. So I'm not going to say which way it scrolls in and scrolls out. Now, one thing to note about scrolling is if you move your cursor somewhere else, it will try to zoom in to where your cursor is. Same thing happens when you zoom out. So the first thing to note about this prop when you're pushing it is very similar. And by the way, maybe I should back up just real quick. You can also click, drag, and move it around as well. So this is helpful if you're looking at a specific part of the wiring diagram and you just want to keep following along. You can click, hold, and move it around to find your spot. Okay, so back to what I was saying. The majority of our props, and I will show this on the prop itself, the majority of our props, when we wire them, uh, we start somewhere that seems to make sense, and we always have the last pixel next to the first pixel. So if you look at this, we see, if you already have this prop, you probably know that it's 1,450 pixels, and you'll notice that pixel number 1 is right here. So they are next to each other. We do this for ease of connection. Now on this prop, it may not be as important because you're probably spreading it across multiple ports, but it could help with things like power injection or power balancing, however you want to define it. So what you want to notice about this prop in looking at it is there's this line that ends, and this is the last pixel right here, 1,450. So there's a line that kind of goes up and zigzag, as it gets a little higher, it zigzags a little bit, but it basically has a a line that runs through almost the middle of the prop here, back to pixel number 1, meaning the end of it zigzags its way back down to pixel number 1. So what I want to show you in this diagram is that everything is repeating patterns. Now each pattern and each layer is a little bit different, but there's different layers. So here's a layer, pixel number 1 starts and it goes clockwise just in a circle over to pixel 19, and notice that it doesn't cross over this center line here. And as you go to 19, you'll go up a few, and the pixels around this line are not going to necessarily follow the pattern that you do, but once the pattern starts, it's going to repeat over and over and over and over again. Now I'm going to talk about a little bit later in the pushing process. There is a break in one of the patterns, but I just want to show you an example of what this pattern might look like, and a couple quick little tips of how it might help while you're pushing this. So notice that this goes up. Now this doesn't have these 4 pixels right here. These aren't part of a pattern, but we notice it goes pixel 1, 2, 3, 4, and then it goes down 1, 2, 3, almost makes this W looking shape that goes up, then back down, and then it finishes this W shape. And then again, we've got pixels 1, 2, 3, 4, and then you've got that W shape. And once you've figured this pattern out, what I do is I don't even look at the wiring diagram, because it repeats until you get over close to here. And this is where you want to pay attention. Make sure that you're not getting these center line pixels and that you're getting this slight deviation from the pattern accurate. And then again, here we start another pattern. This is just basically 2 circles that run around the prop, but just remember it goes up, over, down, over, up, over, down, over. And so again, once you start figuring out that pattern, you can just repeat until you get back over to this side here. Moving on to the next pattern. Again, when you get over to the side, you want to verify where you're at, and I check if I'm pushing 50 pixel strings, I'll check every 50. If you're pushing 100 pixel strings, I will check every 100 just to verify that, yep, okay, here's pixel number 200. This looks like where I'm at on the prop. And you'll find that it's actually pretty darn easy to push. So once you get past this deviation from any patterns here, you're going to find that you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, and then I like to double count some of these pixels just because it makes it really easy in my head. So I count 1, 2, 3, 4, and I start again with number 4, but I count 1, 2, 3, 4, and then I know that it jumps quite a bit over this way, but then I go 1, 2, 3, 4 this way, and then that pattern starts over again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, down, then count 1, 2, 3, 4. And again, that pattern repeats until you come all the way over here. And again, there's a slight variation here. But each of these patterns, they're pretty easy, and they repeat about 20 times on each of these. So when you get into any of these patterns, whatever makes sense for you to push it that way, and you're verifying every 100, you're going to find that pushing this goes pretty darn quick, pretty darn easy. After discussing here, we're going to go into the actual prop itself along with some suggestions, and then I will talk about the issue that does exist with one of the patterns, and it is pretty far. It's over in the 1300 pixel range, and we will provide a screenshot as well with that issue. So here we are looking at the actual prop. Here's a couple things to take note. The holes are drilled. If you have the mounting brackets, the holes are pre-drilled, the small little holes that you see. Now there's 4 sets of those that you will see. And here is another set down here. Now notice that the distance from these holes here is longer than these holes here. So when you find the holes that are closer, find this pattern right here and do as I do if you have like a silver Sharpie and just mark the top and point up. Now, one thing to take note about this prop is it is basically the same pattern that's repeated over and over and over again. Now, what makes that nice is it makes it nice and easy to wire, just as we had discussed showing the computer screenshots previously. Now, I'm going to note here, as all of our other props are usually wired, I do like to mark pixel number 1 and the last pixel when I'm pushing this prop particularly. In here, we've got pixel number 1. So if you come straight down from the top, straight down, and then move over to the right just one hole, that's pixel number 1, and the pixel pointing straight up to the top, that's going to be the last pixel. That's 1,450. So if I can get around all of these wires, that's 1,450. So just keep in mind that the way that we do this is we're going to go back all the way around, and it's going to come back from the top. It's going to loop through this back all the way down to the bottom. So in short, this entire thing is really, really simple. So you start with pixel number 1, and it makes a single line loop around here. And then it moves up to the next layer, and then there's a repeating pattern that takes place. So you need to figure out that. Once you figure out that pattern, you can stop looking at the wiring diagram and you can just repeat the pattern. And then when you get back to this side, and one thing to note is basically the patterns go back and forth, straddling this line that's going to come back down of the last set of pixels. So when you go back and forth, that is when you need to take real close note on the wiring as to which pixels go where. So you can see here, this is pixel number 400 and 401. So you can see here that it goes off to the side, and I've left this line of holes just as the wiring shows. But you got to make sure that you're checking where these two go and how far up they go, as an example. And then basically it's just a matter of, okay, what's the pattern on this row? And then you repeat the pattern all the way around until you get back to this side. And then once you get over about here, check your wiring diagram on the computer, you're going to go up and you're going to have another pattern. And basically that is how this entire prop works, is it is repeating patterns back and forth and back and forth. It actually gets almost monotonous. Now, I am going to tell you that there is one break in the pattern that I have found, and instead of completely updating all the submodels and resending everything out to everybody and asking everybody to rewire it, I'm just letting everybody know for future, around 1160, so it's somewhere over here, and I will point this out later in the video on the computer specifically. There is a break in the pattern that is the only error in any of the patterns that I have found. And so if you watch every 100 and just double check where you land at the 100 mark, you will notice that something looks a little off by the time you get to 1200. And so watch the video through the end to find that one break in the pattern. It's going to be, like I said, somewhere around here at 1160 something. And hope this helps with pushing your infinity spinner. I also just wanted to show as an example one of these patterns that exist and how easy it is. Now, I've already done the first roughly 50 of this pattern, so I already know the pattern, but it's really this simple. I check the pattern at the first 5 or 8 pixels or so, but what we're doing on this one is, when I looked at the wiring diagram, this outer ring doesn't get any pixels on this pattern. And so basically all I'm going to do is I'm going to take the next pixel, I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, then over, then 1, 2, 3, 4, then over. And then that pattern just repeats and repeats and repeats and repeats. And you're going to find that there's a couple patterns that are a little bit harder than others, but that's basically, in short, how this entire thing pushes. And it's that simple. Okay, so continuing on with pushing this prop, we're at the point where we're a little bit over pixel 650, and this pattern looks intimidating because it goes back and forth, up and around. Now that's the extent of the pattern, but what's interesting about this pattern is it goes from 650 to about 1050, so this pattern takes up 400 pixels. And if we come to look at the actual prop, now I've done this a few times already, but just to show you what the pattern is, in short, what it is we go up 1, 2, 3, 4, then you go over, and when we count the 1, 2, 3, 4, and then we go up
1, 2, 3, 4. And then we skip this outer ring here, so we go across to here. And then we finish off this last line here. So again, it goes this way to here, back, up, across, and then down. So let's see if I can do this one-handed or not. This is painful. 1, 2. This is not my normal pushing station. This is specific for this video here. 3, 4. Now we finished that first line here. Now we're going to follow back over 4. 1. And when I have 2 hands doing this, it's much faster. 2. I went too far. 3. Let's see, can I grab this? 4. So again, we've done 1, 2, 3, 4. And we've done 1, 2, 3, 4 back across, sort of like a triangle. We're going to go back up 1, 2, 3, 4, skip this outer ring, and then when we get to this pixel, you just follow back down here, and then that same pattern repeats. 1, 2, 3, 4, over 1, 2, 3, 4. These will have pixels in them. You go 1, 2, 3, 4, then over, and then back down. Okay, so we've already started the final pattern, the final row pattern, pushing this infinity spinner here, but just a couple notes to get up to there. Once you're almost done with the previous pattern, you're going to have to go down and then sort of back and forth until you get to the top here, and then that will leave you this nice open arc to get back down towards the center like we've talked about, where the last pixel is over by the first pixel over here. So what you should notice is this should already be open from 2 patterns ago, but between the previous pattern and the last pattern, you're just going to leave this nice arc almost all the way to the top, and the first pixel of the last pattern is actually going to start at the top point. Now this pattern is actually very, very easy as well, and I do this in counts of 5, and I count the same pixel twice. So let me show you what I'm talking about. Let's look at the wiring diagram real quick. And it doesn't matter which one I choose, except for there's one in here that is bad, but we'll talk about that in a minute. So we start on the outside, we go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It moves inwards away from that outer ring, and we go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now we're going to count this pixel again in our heads, but because it's just simple counts of 5. We count that as 1, we go 2, 3, 4, 5. And then again, we go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then again, same pattern, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then we jump back in. And so if we look at this on the infinity spinner itself, now I'm at pixel 1200 here. I'm splitting this up as 4 ports. So pixel 1200 is the end of port number 3. So this is pixel 1200. This is the beginning of one of those patterns. So we go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We go in and away from this outer ring. We go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And I'm going to tell you right now that you're going to need pixel pliers to push this, because sometimes these are so tight in here because this is such a high density prop. But anyways, now we're going to count that pixel again, even though we already pushed it, just because we got simple counts of 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then we're going to move away. We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And so last time we curved around here, and so this one is ending right here. Now again, this will count as the first pixel for the next pattern. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All right, so we're still here pushing the infinity spinner. We're still on that last pattern. Now we're to the problem area where the pattern actually changes just a little bit. Previously, we had just talked about going, let's see here. We'll start over here. We go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then we go in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And we go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and again we go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So that's the pattern. And if we look here, that's what we see here on the pattern. We go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Again, I'm being repetitive on purpose. We go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We go in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This is where the pattern breaks, and you'll notice that this is cut off here, this is cut off here, but up here, this pattern is actually wrong. So we actually go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then we go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 back. So this is the one spot, and it is at pixels at 1285. Instead of cutting over like we did on all the other patterns, we come back. Now what's nice about this is notice that on the next loop around we're at 1300. If you're checking every 50 or every 100, if you miss this and you're checking at your 50 or 100 spots, you'll realize something is off by 1. So we will be posting a photo with some helpful hints here to show, and also part of why I'm doing this video is to make it a lot easier. So when I go to push this, I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and this is the problem. I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and I'm going to go a little bit further to this 6 spot, and then basically come back. And then over here, instead of going all the way in where we would normally on the others, we're just going to stop here and go back across, and then the pattern goes back to the correct pattern. So we can see here, we can see here that the pattern goes back and it fixes itself. It doesn't have this sharp point at the end up here anymore. So that is the one spot in the entire infinity spinner where you're working with patterns and one of the patterns is slightly different. Hope this helps.